Hey Jordan. So, I happened to catch glimpses of your video, God Desires All to Be Saved, earlier today on YouTube, and I had some questions that I thought I would ask you about your theology. It sounds like you're a Calvinist, and I disagree with all of Christianity, but I think Calvinism has some big problems as well. I wanted to ask you some questions. Number one, does the Christian God love everyone? We hear quite a bit about the three different characteristics of God, and that is omnipotence, omnibenevolence, and omniscience. Omnibenevolence obviously being all-loving. He is perfect love, so forth. It says in the Bible, God so loved the world that He gave His only Son. That pretty much is kind of an indication that He's a loving God. But you said that God doesn't want everyone to be saved. If so, why sacrifice His Son? Why not just save those people that He chose to be done with it? Do you think that when God creates someone specifically to send them to hell, how could that make them Him a loving God? That doesn't really make much sense, does it? So we can basically cut out the third characteristic of God. God is therefore not a loving God and therefore not a perfect God, because you can't hate your own creation and be perfect, basically. Because a perfect God would have a perfect creation. You said that it was too easy to be saved. And Jesus said, "Believe in me and you shall receive eternal life." What did He mean? Also, Jesus said it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. Do you think these statements contradict? Do you think it's possible that Jesus was simply saying that the way to get to heaven was the narrow gate, and that people who wish to attain heaven should live by His example? There's many different statements about how one actually attains quote-unquote salvation. When I was a Christian, I used to believe that to do so was to be Christ-like. What do you think it is to be Christ-like? Do you think Jesus loved everyone except temple merchants and Satan? Do you think that Jesus accepted people of different faiths and had tolerance for them? It shows so in the Bible that He did. And Jesus also turned the other cheek and led a non-violent life. He also washed the feet of sinners and had humility. Do you think that you and your fellow Christians display these qualities? For example, Shaka Now, someone you've been associating with, who lies about other religions and calls Wiccans dirt worshippers. Saunders Acts 26:18, a racist who calls a goddess a slut and tries to call other religions evil. Do you think they're Christ-like? Do you think you're being Christ-like? Just a question. So, here's my problem with this. I've been working very, very hard with my own community, whom I found out, I didn't realize until recently how much angst and negativity in my own community there was towards Christianity and Christians. And I don't really have a problem with people disagreeing with another religion, but what I do have a problem with is those people looking negatively, grouping people together, and, acting intolerant towards people who have a different religion. And, I consider that to be bigotry from either side. Either Christians persecuting pagans for their beliefs or pagans persecuting Christians for their beliefs. And so I've been working with my own community to try to build a bridge between the pagan community and the Christian community so we can better understand each other. As you may know, pagan community is growing in the United States and Canada and several other countries, several other, kind of industrialized nations. You'll find more and more people who are especially associated with Wicca. So I think it's important that we, learn about other religions and learn to kind of interact with other religions, and so that we're not so divisive. And I think that, both sides need to work on that, I did a blog where I said that, basically, this is a bridge that needs to be built from both sides. What I see from people like Shaka Now and Saunders is not people who are building bridges, not people who are wanting to be peaceful or understand other people who think differently than them. I think what they're doing is reinforcing these stereotypes that people who are outside of the Christian community, like myself and others, have. And I find that to be really unfortunate, because really, not all Christians are like Shaka now and Saunders. There's a myriad of different, Christian beliefs that, are associated with Jesus and all that. And I think as a society and as a culture, the pagans and, other people need to understand Christians better, and Christians also need to understand other religions better. And with people like Shaka now, who just associate Wicca with church worshippers, and Saunders, who calls our goddess a slut, I don't see that as something that a peaceful man like Jesus would have done. Now, we ourselves have our own Christ-like deities, people who are considered to be heroes or saviors or something like that predate Jesus, for the most part. And, and there is a lot of that same aspect of, of a peaceful nature and a more enlightened nature, and coming to a more enlightened age with that aspect. And I think that, when we associate ourselves with people like Saunders and Shaka now, and there are people in my own community who I feel are just as bad as Saunders and Shaka. I'm going to say that right off the bat. I'm using them as examples because I think, Jordan, that you're a good person. And I think that you could do better than to hang out with people like that. I think that when you associate with people like Saunders and Shaka, you are associating yourself with the worst element of Christianity. And I think that really, if you want to be Christ-like, the best thing for you to do is to associate with Christians who are more enlightened and don't bash people of other faiths. That's my personal opinion. So I hope that you're not taking offense to this video, because it's no offense intended. I just want you to see a little bit, step outside the box and look a little bit at what people like Saunders and Shaka are actually like, and how people who are not Christian perceive them, and whether or not they're actually helping a cause. Anyway, please dialogue back with me. I hope to hear from you, and blessed be.